And so he comes back to us and says, guys, I know we have to do this. And knowing is the evolution of believing. And you and I know when we've had an experience, I know I have to do this. We've gone
Yes.
beyond believing. Believing helps us get to knowing, right? And this is a very important point for every leader is to move beyond thinking and feeling to believing and knowing.
Hello, and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space. Through this show, I hope to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is trying to grow their company but might not have all the tools and processes to do so. On Outer Spaces, we're passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow, and through my 25 years of dirt under the nails experience, I look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. Today, we have a deep conversation with a gentleman here. His name is Raamon Newman. He was a crazy athlete turned monk, turned actor, and now he teaches CEOs how to be more mindful when they're running their business, making big decisions, going from thinking and feeling to believing and knowing. Think how powerful that could be as business owners and as influencers in this world, going from a think and feel model to a believe and know. He talks a lot about exactly how to do that and how his life's been changed by working inside first and have that become something outside. So there's tons of great information in this episode. It goes deep into what meditation can do for you and even how to get started with that, because I know it sounds like a crazy topic. I struggle with years with it, and then next thing you know, started doing it, changed everything. So guys, listen in. This episode will change your life. Hello, and welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and today my guest is a co-author of The Science of Protection, making high-pressure, impactful leadership decisions that protect you and everyone. He's a former top 3 nationally ranked track athlete, 2-time national cross-country team winner, 4-time state champion winning rugby player. I'm tongue-tied today. He's an entrepreneur, 10-year full-time meditating monk. He's a trained actor and philanthropist for peace projects and youth education, and he's graduated from the University of Auckland, New Zealand, one of my favorite places on earth, and a Bachelor of Commerce in Marketing. He's engaged in acting training in New York City since 2007, 2008 during the global financial crisis, and he realized a calling to help and protect and enhance leaders' achievement, progress, and fulfillment through deeper inner development of their leadership capacity and awareness. This helps him make the best decisions, which protects the interests and success of everyone. This has become his passion of his life's purpose. So Raamon Newman, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Great to be here and looking forward to the journey here.
Absolutely. I'm looking through this whole bio and I'm like, holy, what's a lot of stuff stacked up in a short time. That's really impressive. I'm going through it. I'm thinking, I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot. I thought I've done a lot. This guy's killing it. Like, he's doing a lot of really cool stuff.
Well, I'm 50 now, and I just had my first kid this year. So he's
Wow.
a 7-month-old boy, and
Yeah.
so I haven't had that complication. Well, not complication, but that joy of having a kid early. I've had it
Yeah.
later in my life. So I guess in order to not feel like I'm missing out, I've done all these other things.
Well, you know what? Now you've got that foundation that you can now teach him and share to the
Yeah.
world. That's really awesome. So before we get into today, I want to talk a lot about leadership. You've got an incredible program. I want to introduce the listeners to it and get a lot of your insight on leadership and what 2 things that a CEO really wants and how to help struggling leaders really start leading better. I know that you're the man to talk about that. But before we do that, we're going to do something a little different today. Today, we're going to play a little game. Hopefully listeners have heard of this before. It's called Would You Rather? And I play this because this is a great way as an icebreaker. If you're in a group and you don't know a lot of the people in there, all you got to do is open your phone up and Google Would You Rather. There's thousands of questions. Some are for kids. I've done it with my kids many times. Some of them are for adults, business people, whatever. But it's Would You Rather. And it helps open up that icebreaking conversation. So my Would You Rather question today for you, Raamon, is would you rather know when you're going to die or how you're going to die?
So I negate the how because we're all going to die in some way, shape, or form. And so therefore I'd probably favor the when, to know how much time I got to play with and
Mhm.
what I've got to pack in that time sort of thing.
So obviously there's no wrong answers to this. And it's what's incredible about having a conversation like this is you get to get inside of somebody's head and what they value. Because for me, if I knew when I was going to die, to your point, I'm like, okay, well, I know it's going to be 17 years from now on August 3rd, whatever, right? I'm like, okay, then I can prepare and get as much as I want done. Like I've got a finish line. But if I knew how, imagine if it was like water. That's all you get, right? You're going to die in water. And you're like, oh crap, do I ever take a shower again? Do I ever go in a swimming pool? Do I like, but you don't know when, you just know how. So listeners, I challenge you to think about this question for yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good point, this how thing, because we all want to know how. But the problem with that is that we only know how after the fact.
Yeah.
Like this whole how to thing. Did you know how to do that before you actually did it? No, you didn't. You knew how to do it afterwards. The how is unknown. We have to work through the how, and we don't know the when either. We don't know when we're going to get that next deal or that next, kind of opening or opportunity or things like that. We just don't know. They're the unknowns. We can influence them, but we definitely don't control them.
Okay.
So the focus, those two is interesting. The how and the when is interesting questions because we don't have control. But at the same time, for me, time is the most important thing. The quality of time. It's nice to have quantity time, but quality of time is primary.
And when we're young, we think we have an unlimited amount of time and no money, right? So, and then when you get older, hopefully if you're saving and doing things like that, the next thing you know, you're like, now all of a sudden I have, I'm not going paycheck to paycheck anymore. I finally have a little bit behind me. And now I just want to buy time. So I start paying people to do the things that I don't want to do anymore so I can get the time back to spend with the kids and with the family and doing the hobbies that I want to do. It's crazy how life flips like that, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm glad we've evolved into this knowledge economy where there's so much great information, expertise coming out of people like yourself to really shortcut time and not have to spend so much time trying to figure out the how, because someone's already done it, like
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah, and same with you, man. That's the beautiful part. I believe that all of us have special stories to share, and that's what I love about podcasting is we get to meet awesome people that I wouldn't normally have. I mean, you mentioned before we said go that you're in Kauai right now, right? And I'm like, that's pretty cool, right? I'm sitting here in Pennsylvania, you're in Kauai. The other guy I was talking to is in Ontario. I've met people all over the world, podcasting, people I wouldn't normally run into, right? And to have like an hour just to sit down and figure out what you've figured out in life that we can share. And I love that. So thank you for this. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you got into it, and then we're going to get into leadership because I know that's a great topic for you to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I was born in New Zealand, even though I've spent more of my time in the US than I have actually in New Zealand at this point. So the first 20 years of my life growing up in New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, and typical Kiwi kid lifestyle, very active outside sport, adventure, and as you mentioned, did well in some sporting activities. And I was very intense about my sport. And I actually wanted to be a competitive international professional athlete. That was my sole purpose in my life going through my 20s. And I had an Olympic gold medal winning coach who actually said to me, he said, if you keep going the way you're going, keep training, keep performing, and you stay healthy, there's no reason why you can't go to the Olympics. And when someone like that says something like that to you, you go, okay, I believe you, and I want to believe in this. And so I continued to do the training, and I was really good at training, and I was putting the miles, and I actually got to train with John Walker, who was the 1976 Olympic 1500 meter medalist. He was the first man to run under 3 minutes 50 seconds for the mile. So I got to train with him in the twilight of his career when he was approaching 38. I think he was 39. He was trying to be the first man to run a sub 4 minute mile at age 40. And so we were in this training session. We were doing 400 meter reps. So you basically sprint 400 meters and then you rest for a lap and then sprint another one. I was doing 8 because I was still a junior and he was doing 10. And on the 8th one, I thought, I'm gonna show this guy up. I'll see what I'm made of. So I took the lead in the straight because I wanted to win that one. And when you challenge a champion like that, they're not going to lie down. They're going to say,
Of course
"Who's
not.
this upstart?" So we pushed to the end, and we finished about the same. I gave the old guy some leeway there. Uh,
Did you tell him that too?
no. I just was trying to be humble about it. And so he went on to another two, and then he ended up on his 10th one straining his Achilles tendon, and he actually didn't actually end up accomplishing that feat because of that injury. It basically ended his career. And so it was kind of an omen for me, and I thought, oh, but bummer, that's a really bummer. I hope I didn't, kind of push him too much and cause that. And so I kept on training, and then I was endeavoring to qualify for the World Junior Championships in the 1500 meters, and I was full on into it, and I was trying to reach the qualifying time, and I was top 3 ranked in the country. And long story short, I ended up missing by 2 seconds. And I got very sick, got very ill. I had a lot of respiratory problems, coughing, most nights for about 6 months. Felt like I was an insomniac. Got depressed, had a lot of digestive issues, and literally I burnt out. And I tried to get through that by doing the typical drinking more, eating more, dating whoever seems interested, just to kind of neutralize that pain of realizing I fell short of my goal and my purpose. And I felt like I lost my purpose in life. And so I was in a bewildered phase, but eventually that numbing doesn't work, as we pretty much know. And you have to face reality and realize that you need new knowledge. Something's missing as to the reason why you burnt out. And so instead of going outward, I went inward, and I learned to meditate. I learned transcendental meditation when I was 19, and had an experience where I was like, I literally walked out after that first meditation feeling like I was walking on the clouds. Now, obviously, I wasn't walking on the clouds, but the contrast between where thought I was relaxed to where actual, real, deep settledness was so great. It's such a contrast that I felt like I was just floating along. And so I realized, oh man, I don't have to run 5 miles a day to feel like I can get into my bliss and my zone and get that endorphin high. It's already there. That fulfillment is not something we achieve, it's something that we experience. And so I then literally flipped the script on my life and went from being extremely outward to being more and more and more inward to experience that inner fulfillment. And it was also, I wanted to develop my inner ability to achieve and progress. And I realized that I lack some capacity on a mental level. And I now know today that, most people are realizing this, that 90 to 95% of our success comes from our mind, because our mind is coming up with these impulses of thought to drive our body into action, right? And we all can have this kind of like take massive action, but it has to be massive action based on coherent thinking, a coherent thought power. And I believe the companies and the people that are doing well, they have just an extra strength of thought power that drives their actions, that allows things to work out better than most. And so, long story short, now I age of 25, I decide I'm going to meditate full time. I want to meditate 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I found a program and a facility in North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, Boone, outside Boone, city of Boone. And there was a facility there. It was a campus, men's campus, women's campus on the 7,000 beautiful acre lot overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. And people from all around the world, different countries, ethnics, religions, who wanted to come there and just meditate 8 hours a day. They had that opportunity to do that. And so, okay, I'm going to commit to doing that. We actually had to commit to 1 year. We had a 3-month kind of basic program, and then we had to go into commit for a year. And so I committed to the year, and I did 1 year, and I said, wow, this is great. I'm really enjoying this lifestyle. Maybe I just do another year, And that another year evolved into 10 years, because that experience of that bliss that's always there, that always will be there, was so strong. I just wanted more of it, I became a little bit addicted to that meditative experience, you could say, in a healthy way. It wasn't extreme too much, even though it is on the outside looks like extreme. It was in a very programmed environment where we were, taken care of. We don't get too extreme on either end of the spectrum. So there was a balance there. And so basically after 10 years, I go, okay, I feel like I've got this inner fulfillment to a good level of development, and that I now need to implement or reintegrate with the world and be of value in serving the world with this. and based on my experience. So I wanted to make a very black and white, out of the cave and into the marketplace approach. So I decided I'm going to go to New York City, which is obviously one of the busiest, most dynamic marketplaces in the world. And I'm going to get back and I'm going to do acting. Because I was so used to non-acting, just being in silence. I'm going to do acting. I'm going to
I
act.
see a sense of extremes here, from running like crazy to not running to acting. It's
Yeah,
like they're extreme moves.
that definitely. It's part of my nature. I don't recommend it for anyone, but if you have that nature, it's kind of a bit of a joyride. So go to New York City, sign up for an acting program for a summer training. Fell in love with that after 6 weeks. Decided to do another couple of semesters there in New York City, a couple of years, 2007, 2008. And was just loving kind of integrating that inward experience with the outward experience. And acting is all about great connecting. So it was about how can I, take this connection to myself that I'd been working on for 10 years and create it with other people.
Yeah.
And in this acting illusory environment. They say acting is basically it's living truthfully under imaginary circumstances, which is an interesting contradiction. And I had the experience actually that in that environment, in the acting environment, actually more truthfulness comes out because you're in a high stakes situation than actually maybe you would in real life. It brings a lot of kind of deep instincts out that wouldn't otherwise happen if you were in that sort of environment. So I really loved the ability to develop the ability to think on your feet and impulses and stuff like that, follow your impulses. And so while I was there, my business partner, who had been on this program in North Carolina with me, but it had been, let's say, elevated to a more elite program in the Himalayas. He spent 6 years up in the Himalayas, and he came back, and we'd actually started on this program in North Carolina, our silent partnership with business leaders. We would meditate 8 hours a day, and then in order to support our monastic environment, our monastic living, food and board, we would get a little bit of money from them. And so we would meditate 8 hours a day as their silent partner, and then in the afternoons we had free time, we'd jump on a call for about an hour and just kind of help them debunk some of the things going on in their mind. And so, but when he went away, that kind of dissolved, but we kept it on just a really kind of non-active level, more on a silent level. They were just happy to give us money to meditate. And so in 2007 rolls around, he had to come out of the Himalayas to help a buddy who had a heart attack up there, a more elderly gentleman. And so he decided that he wasn't going to go back up. And he asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm in New York City doing this acting program. He said, well, how are you going to make money? Acting's a tough profession to make money in. How do you make money? I said, well, I haven't really thought about it. I'm just kind of getting back into the world. And, I was leveraging credit cards and some donations from some sponsors to live there. And so he said, well, why don't we reboot what we were doing in a more professional way and start to work with business leaders and helping them and supporting them. And I said, that's actually a really good idea right now, because 2007, 2008, as you remember, was financial crisis years.
Yep.
And being in New York City, I felt a lot of it. I felt a lot of the stress that was going on with people getting laid off. And I'd talk to people about it, and I'd go, hang on, how did these really smart, really intelligent business leaders cause a financial calamity for themselves and their businesses and the economy? And I go, they had the same problem I did. They're so focused on that outer achievement and development and not really taking care of the inner development to really make wise decisions that protect them and their achievement long term so they can build on it. So they had to go through this crash in order to learn that. And so I said, I think there's a real purpose here to help support some of these very smart leaders in developing more awareness. Because it's one thing to be very smart and very clever. It's another thing to have the awareness of how your smart and cleverness is going to impact the future and yourself and your people that you're leading. And so we basically started to get introduced to some CEOs, and we got introduced to one of our CEOs back in 2010. And that company was a 90-year-old company. And the first year we worked with them, they'd just gone over the $1 billion mark after 90 years in business, medical supply company. And end of that year, the CEO was awarded CEO of the Year for New Zealand. And it was like the best year in his career so far. And he goes at the end of the year, he goes, guys, I want to have a break. I go, oh, that's interesting. You just had the best year of your career. Why do you want to have a break? He said, well, I just want to see if it's just me having a great year or is it us working together? I go, okay, that's
Hmm.
very practical, black and white cause and effect CEO thinking. Let's have a break. So we have this break, and we leave him with a question. We said, you have to work out why you won this award. So 5 months go by, we check back with him. He says, how's it going? He says, it's not going great. My deals aren't working and I'm extremely frustrated. And we said, well, have you answered that question we left you with? And he said, no, I haven't even thought about it. He said, well, why is that important? And so he gets really curious about this answer. He tries to, answer it. Wasn't really getting it. So he said, look, when you win an award like this, it no longer becomes just about you and you achieving great things. It becomes about you having a higher purpose, developing yourself to another level, and helping people around you to do the same.
Yep.
And so he breathes a sigh of relief at that new truth and says, that makes a lot of sense. Can we keep working together? So we've been working together with this company. He's since retired. And over the last 12 years, 13 years, we've been working with them. The company's now doing over 10 billion in revenue.
Wow. That's
And
incredible.
so we're working with the new CEO, and there was an experience there with like the big leap in the company. So we started working with them. A few years passed by, the company goes to 3 billion in revenue. He sees an opportunity, has a vision to double the size of the company through reverse merger acquisition. So his smaller, better performing company acquiring a bigger but less performing company. Goes to his major shareholders and says, guys, this is our next evolution. We have to do this deal to really stabilize our growth. And the major shareholders say, no, we do not want to do this
Hmm.
because it's going to ruin the stock price, it's going to ruin the performance of the company, it's going to ruin the culture of the company. So he comes back to us, and this is a common CEO problem: is they have a vision for something, but their environment somehow doesn't get it yet. And the reason why they don't get it, it's not the idea that they don't get, it's that they don't get that that person has the capacity to pull it off.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there's some lack of belief in that leader. Even though they've done well, they think, oh, it's too much. This is like another level that we've never been to before, and we don't know if you can pull it off. But we like your idea. We're going to say no to your idea, but we're actually saying no to you. And so he comes back to us and says, guys, I know we have to do this. And knowing is the evolution of believing. And you and I know when we've had an experience, I know I have to do this. We've gone
Yes.
beyond believing. Believing helps us get to knowing, right? And this is a very important point for every leader, is to move beyond thinking and feeling to believing and knowing. And so he says to us, guys, I know we have to do this, but I'm not getting support from the major shareholders to do it. And we said, well, you can go and keep debating and intellectually arguing with them to convince them, or we can work on you owning this reality more fully, more clearly, and having the capacity and projecting that so they actually believe you can pull it off. Because right now they may like your idea, but they don't believe you can do it. And so he goes, okay, let's do that. Let's work on me. So 3 or 4 weeks go by. We go through our processes and helping him, really own this. And we say, okay, let's represent this, and we help him represent it. Major shareholders go, okay, let's give this a go. And they're basically saying, yes, we can see in you that you have the belief to pull this off, and you're selling us on it, and that you're ready. So that was the first obstacle overcame. The second obstacle was making the deal work: long hours, tight time frames, many possibilities for the deal falling apart, as most mergers and acquisitions do. 79% of mergers and acquisitions actually fail. And despite all this, he says to us, guys, I feel like I'm the eye of the storm. I feel completely calm and relaxed going through all this busyness. And the deal fell into place. So they evolved to a $6 million company. They've now evolved to over 10 billion, nearly 11 billion in revenues. And it's been a great journey. And it's really been about enlivening that power of the leadership thinking and believing.
So, I mean, there's so many things to unpack in that. I'm thinking about the angle we go into here. So, a lot of the listeners here are business owners, small business owners. Obviously, this stuff is incredible. Thinking billions instead of millions, right?
Yep.
So now it's a matter of looking at it and saying, okay, so when you were going through from being an athlete going into monkdom, I don't know if that's the proper way to say it, but
Trending word, monk mode's a trending word. It was on Inc. magazine did an article on going into monk mode. But how they define it is like isolating yourself, which is important. But
Yeah.
you can isolate yourself, but have 1,000 thoughts, and you're
Oh yeah.
not knowing which one to follow. You know.
No, absolutely. So monk mode, and then you go into acting, and then you're going into now helping the CEO. Go through. You said he was 90 at the time.
No, the company was 90 years old.
90. Okay.
Yeah, the company was 90 years old. He was like in his early 60s at the time.
Got it.
So yeah, so it took them 90 years to get to 1 billion and
Yeah.
10 years to get to 10 billion, basically.
Crazy. That's the crazy part. So what I'd love to unpack is that the fact that you took 90 years to get to 1 billion. You could say a million or 1,000, doesn't matter. The point is to a certain high level, and then you 10x'd it in a very short amount of time, not another 90 or 100 years. So what changed in there in order to get that company to go from one level, which I thought was unachievable, to 10x of that?
Okay, great question. So you've heard of the saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And that saying. So we've got an update on that. We say consciousness eats culture and strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Hmm.
So when you raise the consciousness or the awareness of a leader, it's like they've got a better view from the top of the mountain. And we can only really guide and lead people when we've got that view. You know, if we're halfway up the mountain, we can only guide people to halfway up the mountain. But if
That's
we've
right.
got another view, we can guide those people that are supporting us and following us up to another level. And also do that for other leaders that we might be want to work with or companies we want to acquire and stuff like that. And so, so what is consciousness, right? It's a big word. It's kind of abstract, but the best analogy that I can give you is the iceberg analogy. And most people do this. They get about 2/3 of it right, and they miss the last portion. So we know the iceberg analogy. 1/4 of the iceberg is above the water, and it's supported and allowed to be 1/4 above the water because of the 3/4 that's underneath the water that supports it. So,
Right.
like that, our mind has a conscious level where we interact with our senses and our environment, and that has a certain value. And then we have a subconscious, which is that 3/4 under the water, which is actually more powerful. So, this is what we believe, the impressions that we have, the feelings that we have. We may be consciously doing something, but underneath we're like self sabotaging, because of some
Been there.
stresses or traumas that we're dealing with or frustrations. And then we have consciousness, which is where the iceberg came from in the first place, which is the ocean, right? And so the ocean is an unbounded field of all possibilities, right? So out of that unbounded field of all possibilities comes this possibility of an iceberg or a business, right? And so the more that we're connected and our mind is settled on that level of consciousness and pure awareness, then the more we're likely to have the right thought at the right time to make the right decision, right? Because we can have so many thoughts in one day, but really all we want is one really good thought, which drives that whole day, right? And all the
Got
other
it.
thoughts support that one core impulse of thought and feeling or believing, whatever you want to call it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we meditate, when we transcend, and we allow our mind to go from the conscious level, from the active conscious level to the subconscious level to the consciousness, and we experience that pure wakefulness, which is both settled and dynamic and alert at the same time. Now, in terms of neurophysiology, what does that look like? Well, what they've found is a book called World Class Brain. Highly recommend it. They studied world class athletes, business leaders, and musicians when they're performing at their best, making their best decisions. They had a unique style of brain functioning. And what they found is that brain has a lot of what they call global alpha coherence. And what that means is an ability to see the bigger picture and an ability to see the finer details on how to fulfill that bigger picture. And it's where there's a lot of coherence across all hemispheres in the brain, and especially between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is basically the CEO of you. Everybody's a CEO if they have a prefrontal cortex, right? And that's the CEO of us. Now, if that CEO of us is stressed, frustrated, fatigued, tired, we can't see very clearly, and we can't therefore make decisions very clearly. So our ability to create that coherence and that alertness, because everyone thinks the amygdala is just fight, flight, or freeze. That's the lowest functioning of the amygdala. The highest functioning of the amygdala is vigilance, because it's in coherence with the prefrontal cortex, which interprets the impulses that are coming to us. And so, as we're able to clearly interpret impulses, the right impulse, the right thought, the right time, we're able to be far more effective and more efficient in making things happen, right? And we actually have this sense of believing and knowing in things rather than thinking and feeling all the time and overanalyzing.
That is a huge piece there. That what you just said about think and feel. I know you mentioned it earlier versus believing and knowing. I found myself often, especially in beginning days of businesses, where I always thought and felt, and I still do at times. I think this, I feel that, like I feel this way about things. But there's been in the last, I'd say, probably 6 months to a year, a lot more full depth believing and knowing. Like this is the direction we're going to go. Everything makes sense. And I love your analogy of going up the mountain, because you feel like, like at a certain point you want to start seeing things from a different perspective, but you're only halfway up the mountain. And the further you keep working on yourself, whether it's through meditation or personal development, you start becoming more self-aware and start becoming more aware of these impulses, that they aren't you, that they're patterns. And you're just like, wait a minute here, I'm not them. So if I'm not them, then who am I? And starting to fill in what that actually means, right? And start to build that. Next thing you know, you're looking from a higher point of the mountain, and you're looking. So when it comes to the knowing, you're like, yeah, of course I know the trail. I've already been to the top. I've seen it all. I know there's a knowing, not like I think I can get to the top. I'm here. Now I can look at it and I can help guide others through that.
Exactly. It's almost like you've arrived in your mind, and then it's just a matter of your environment playing that
Yeah.
out. You
Catching
know?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Because the mind is
Yeah.
amazing. That's why I say 90,
It is.
95% of success starts in our mind. And if we can get our
Yeah.
mind right, then anything's possible, you know. And
Absolutely.
and everyone can develop that, because we have 100. I don't know who counted these, but they estimated 100 billion neurons. So if we
Hmm.
can get those 100 billion neurons firing even more coherently, and you've obviously
Yeah.
gone through an evolution in yourself and your business where your brain is because of your experience and because of whatever you're doing on personal development, your brain is becoming more connected and therefore able to connect the dots a lot better. And so you have this deep knowingness about how to
Yeah.
unfold things, you know. So everyone's doing that. I mean, but if you are putting the effort in on your personal development, it'll happen faster than if you're not.
For sure. Yeah, there's no doubt in that. And dude, so you wanted to get back to monkdom. I'd love for you to unpack that one.
Which aspect? What do
Well,
you
you
want to?
mentioned about like the definition of monkdom. I think you said
Oh
because it's a
yeah,
buzzword now.
yeah. Monk mode. So monk mode
That's
is
it, monk.
the superficial aspect of monk mode is go and isolate yourself in a room and focus on what you need to focus on. Right. Be away from the world. No distractions. Okay, great. So you do that, and then you got all these thoughts chattering away in your mind, and you're not sure which one is going to help you. So the next level of monk mode is to be able to allow your mind to be in that settled state, because well, let's say settled, restfully alert state, right? We want to be relaxed and alert at the same time. So in terms of neuroscience, we have these different frequencies in our brain. One of them is gamma frequency. So gamma frequency is when we focus. We focus on something. It's a very excited, very alert frequency. Problem with that, it doesn't allow the mind to be that settled. And so therefore we can't perceive as well because we're focused. We're narrowed in on something.
Right.
The next frequency in the brain is beta frequency, which is when we focus on something and we process information off what we're focusing on, right? So there's a processing element. And so that's also an active, very alert frequency, very necessary to function in the world. Now, the next level that we want is we want to have that slow theta and delta waves, right? And that's where we're relaxed, we're able to imagine, we're able to visualize from that very settled, alert state. We're able to see things more clearly, or at least feel things more clearly, or believe things more clearly. And so when we have an integration of the beta and the gamma, the alert frequencies, and the restful frequencies of theta and delta, we have global alpha coherence. So you've got this kind of more balanced between the alert side of yourself and the restful side of yourself. So when you're in that state, it's like you've pulled back the arrow. We can like pull an arrow back this much and it'll go that far. If we pull it right back, it's just going to go as fast as it can towards the target, right? If we've aimed
Mm-hmm.
it well. And so that's what we want to get into is activating this global alpha coherence so that when we fire our arrow, it's got so much thought force and energy and passion and power behind it, right? Because we've connected
Yeah.
to its source. The source of thought is consciousness. Without consciousness, we cannot perceive each other and anything else or function well, right? So it's acknowledging and being connected to that consciousness so that you can fire your arrows of thought and action more coherently.
I love that, dude. It's so true. And it's, man, I know I struggled for years with any kind of meditation. It was like, I don't do that stuff. That's what yogis do. That's what, it's like, I'm a guy born and bred in the cornfields of Pennsylvania. Like, this is not what we do. Right. And, but I started to watch some of the people that I respected and said, why are they so calm under pressure? They're just, they know something. There's a knowing within them, right? There's something that's different about them. When pressure comes, they're calm. They're the eye of the storm. They're just like, okay, we got this. And like everyone else is freaking out and they're just totally straight. And I'm like, what do they have that I don't have? And when I start talking to them, it's like, well, we spend a lot of time on personal development, digging deep and being real, raw, having the hard conversations and facing our fears right nose to nose. And then we also spend time for our minds and we meditate and we think about these things and we do it in a disciplined practice. Now, not maybe 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for 10 years, but, in general, like they're adding it into their daily rituals. And, so I started doing that for a while and started meditating and I started to, I found different ones on YouTube and they were short ones, 10, 15 minutes, right? Laughable. But point is, they started the process of slowing down. I didn't like to be in my own mind. Man, it scared me in there because I'm like, holy crap, there's no joke in there. I'm looking at myself, right? And I'm watching the squirrel run in that wheel constantly. And I'm like, dude, what is going on in here? And then yeah, and then just I'd say about a year. Was it about a year ago?
I
Maybe a
call
little
it
less than a year ago.
inner entertainment. That it's inner
Yes,
entertainment.
that it is. It's like its own little TV show going on in there,
Yep.
right? And you're like, what is going on in here? Anyway, so my wife and I did Joe Dispenza, one of his 6-day
Yep.
extensive workshops, and we went into that. And one of the things they're like, you're going to be meditating a lot. I'm like, well, yeah, I got that. Like 10 minutes, not a big deal. He's like, try 3 hours a day. And I'm like, 3 hours in my head? I don't know if I even want to be in there that long. But the first day was a little tough. After that, I actually started liking it in there. I started to see little thought bubbles move through and I felt emotion come up when I thought of something and then I saw it disappear and I felt it good. I'm like, wait a minute here. This is so crazy. And there's no drugs involved. You know that, right? I'm just telling the listeners, like, this is just straight up. You're just conscious and unconscious. It's, I guess, whatever. But so point is, then I think that was the fourth or fifth day. I think we went like 6 hours that day, meditating. And I was like, what? Like, who am I? Like, this is so strange for me to be able to go through this stuff and to enjoy that space inside. And I kept wanting to go back more and more. I understand the pull, right? You're like, it's so calm in there. And when you finally get some knowing and belief of what's going on in there, and you're like, wait a minute here, all this stuff that has been pulling me down, these negative thoughts, they're just things that I can decide to listen to or not. They aren't me, they're patterns. And I keep saying that in this podcast, but it's so true. They're like records that have been playing nonstop for the last 40 years. And I have the ability to take that record off and put a new one on.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that's because the brain is neuroplastic. This whole thing can change very, very quickly if you have the right tools. And I think, and then what you experienced there was that the nature of the mind is to experience more and more charm. Now we
Yeah.
try and find more and more charm through our senses, but what we experience through our senses comes and goes, right?
Yeah.
It's a ephemeral kind of world, pleasure, pain, gain, loss. It's all going on out there, and we try and get some sort of satisfaction and charm through that, but it's always fluctuating. So when we go inward, then we go to the field of greatest charm, right? Which is when the mind's settled. Everybody loves themselves and loves everybody else when their mind's settled because they're
Yeah.
connected to the heart, and their heart starts flowing because their mind's settled. And that's the basis of, I believe, of attracting things, because when you are in that settled, coherent state, you have a good frequency. When you have a good frequency, you can attract things. But if you're not in a bad frequency, it's very hard to attract what you want, or enliven what you want.
No, for sure. And when you're there, you're more clear on what you want, right? It's not just some kind of reaction to what you're feeling, but there's a deeper understanding and a knowing of what actually brings joy and fulfillment into life. It's not the stuff, it's not the material crap. It's the giving, it's the serving, it's the doing more than you and getting the ego out of the way and facing that and being like, who the hell do you think you are? You're not controlling me anymore. I'm going for service now. I'm going for growth. I'm going for how many people can I possibly help and impact and share with on my journey, however many days I got left, right? We don't know our end, right? We talked about in the beginning, right? Whether we know when or how, but it's going to be whenever it's going to be, and we're going to just give as much as we can. And once that shift happens and you start realizing that life is so much bigger and better than you, then you start seeing it from a different perspective. You're like, "Yeah, I know what I need to do. There's not like
Yep.
I feel I need to do this. I know this is what I need to do."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very powerful point. Getting those the things that we do control, I believe, and as probably you know, is the what, the why, and the who. Right? What do we want? Why do we want it? And who do we want involved in working with us and supporting us in achieving these
Yeah.
things? And we can control those. The when and the how, as we mentioned earlier. You know, don't really have much. We have an influence over it. We don't have much control over the outcomes.
Yeah.
We just
So I'd
influence
love
them.
to go a little deeper with you in this after we've gotten through monk mode, about how, meditation, how this mindfulness um, has impacted your leadership style over time and how it can impact other leaders. I know that's what you specialize in, right? Getting into the things about what the two things that CEOs want and getting deeper into how to help direct them from more of an inner state. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's their inner development, and it's more the ability to observe, having this what we call observing power. There's a thing in physics called an object is transformed through the process of observation, which implies that, okay, if you want to powerfully influence an object or an outcome, then it comes down to your ability to have that observing power. You would just, knowing with your wife, just having your attention on her and having loving thoughts and feelings for her, she feels something. she
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 does.
she picks
Yeah.
up on something. She goes, "Oh, I'm getting some good energy from my hubby," you know.
Yeah.
So and so we're helping them to be in more of um, that state, that restful alert state, so that they can discern and decide better. Because and decisions really has to come down to what is truthful. The truth. And I believe, and what a lot of what we do is squeeze all the truth out of the situation, out of themselves, out of what's going on in their environment. Because the more you can get into the full truth, the fullness of truth, then the more you're going to be protected, and the more you're going to make the right decision, and the more you're going to be triumphant, in whatever
Yeah.
situation you're facing. But if you can't get to the truth of what's going on, there's going to be complications. There's going to be stresses. There's going to be conflicts.
It's true, and sometimes that truth is hard pill to swallow because sometimes the truth is selfishness. The truth is trying to make yourself look good in front of other people, and then there's a direct conflict with knowing what you should be doing versus why you're doing it. And I know I struggle with this was actually to face the truth. I hated looking in the mirror, dude. That was one of the hardest things for me to do when I was younger. I didn't like the man that looked back. I knew all the vices. I knew all the struggle that was going on in my head. On the outside, everything looked fine. I was a train wreck in my head. And I did not like to look at a mirror for that reason. And I said, what would life be like if I looked into the mirror and I was proud of the man that looked back? And not in an egotistical way, but just proud of the man that built a life around that bullshit and busted it out of his existence. And I've been very blessed to be able to do that and to do the inner work and to break through that stuff. And now I look in the mirror and I'm like, dude, we're doing it. We're serving today. How many more people can we impact? How many more people can we talk to? How many more people can we empower? And it just becomes this thing. I don't have to explain it to you. I know you're already doing it, right? Just helping people becomes the best thing you can possibly do and sharing what God's given you, your gifts, you know what I mean? And being like, man, it just doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, and I like what you're doing in your business is like you're glorifying the environment, people's environment, but how are you able to do that? It's coming from this, what you're feeling inside, and
Yeah.
all the intelligence and the creativity that's bubbling up with you because you are in a good state and you can see things that other people can't. You can guide them to that experience,
Yeah.
that they
It's
can
the
create
knowing
for
again.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome, dude. So what are two things that you think that all CEOs want?
Basically, what they want, and many of them probably won't admit this or even be cognizant of it, but when you tell it to them, they'll go, "Yeah, I want that." So the first thing is capacity, and that's the mental and emotional capacity to handle anything, to handle any great opportunity, to handle any great challenge, any great problem, and to be able to even avert problems and challenges before they arise, because it takes so much time and energy to have to go and correct things. And we want to be in creating mode as much as possible versus being in correcting mode. There's always going to be some sort of corrections we're making in life because no one's perfect. But if we're spending a lot of time correcting things, it takes away from the ability to create things. And
100%.
the more, and if there are things to be corrected, focus on the correcting first. So then you're purified that, and so that you can move into creating much more easily. So having that capacity to handle things because you believe and know what the truth is super important. And then the protection comes from just being coherent and doing that. There's a thing in physics called the Meissner effect. And basically what they found is that when you put a superconductor, which is very coherent, against a incoherent conductor, that outside incoherence does not penetrate the coherence. And it's like the analogy, like negativity is a part of life. It's always there. It's actually there to keep us on track and to tell us when, hey, you're going the wrong way. And so, but it's incoherence. It's incoherent. And negativity actually is always challenging positivity. And so the more that we can remain coherent in who we are and what we're doing, coherent with ourselves, coherent with our environment, our relationships, our purpose, then the more that negativity or that distraction that wants to throw us off, it'll always be there, but it won't be able to penetrate and affect us, right? And so we're protected in what we're doing. And so when we're protected, we can continue to create, from that. Because, there are CEOs often have these zero-sum game experiences, these zero-sum game achievements. So they achieve something really well, and then something happens and they're not achieving. So it's like they haven't really achieved anything. They haven't really progressed. Like the stock price goes up. Oh, great. Oh, but now it's down at 17 cents again. It was up at $5 and now it's 17 cents. Well, how come you couldn't build on that? And it's due to some lack of coherence with the CEO primarily, because they're the biggest influence on the company, and then in their environment. And so having that protection is not like I'm risk adverse and stuff like that. It actually allows you to take more risks. When you're coherent, you can take bigger risks. When you're not coherent, you don't have as much protection. If you take bigger risks, you're probably going to get hammered. So it's developing that coherence to have that protection, protection through coherence, through a coherent mind.
Okay. So if that's the case, and those are the two things that CEOs want people out there listening, that either they're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Or, okay, that reminds me of me. What do they do about it? How can they get there?
So basically, I mean, the short answer to that is meditate regularly. Now, there's 3 different types of meditation that you'll find out there. One is focused attention meditations, where you're focusing on some object or maybe something inside of yourself. And that's useful for strengthening your concentration muscle. But the problem with that is it's still engaging the mind on the surface, right? It's still keeping it active in some way. The second type of meditation you'll find out there is self-monitoring or open monitoring meditation. So there you're monitoring your breath rate, your heart rate, your thoughts and feelings, someone's guided words or music or something like that. And this is very useful for contemplating and processing things. And that's useful in that regard, but it's still keeping the mind active, still engaged in processing something. And so it doesn't allow that full settledness to be there. The last type of meditations you'll find out there is what they call automatic self-transcending techniques. And these are techniques that go beyond the technique itself. And that's really the definition of a good technique. A technique is just a vehicle to get you to an experience that supports you and helps you. So these self-transcending techniques allow the mind, as I mentioned earlier, to go from the conscious through subconscious and get back to consciousness in that settled, alert, awake state. And so this is where we activate the whole brain, the global alpha coherence, more likely to have the right thought at the right time. And so there's 2 techniques that do this, that found and research that have a strong ability to do this. One is a Qigong technique, and another one is TM, Transcendental Meditation. The difference between the 2 is they've found that TM will activate that right from the first time you learn it, whereas the Qigong technique takes a little more effort and time to master. Okay. And so, and this is like just about every major celebrity and business leader that you can think of has learned TM because it's so simple, it's so effortless, It uses the nature of the mind to want to be settled and go to the field of greatest charm. And they notice greater depth and breadth of benefits. So everyone from, Clint Eastwood, who's been doing TM for 50 years or whatever, however long he's been alive, Martin Scorsese's, Katy Perry, Russell Brand, Ray Dalio, and half of his staff at Bridgewater Associates, they all do TM because it's just so simple and effortless. And they find because of that, they're able to be more regular with it because they enjoy it more. It's not like a chore to do, it's something they actually want to do.
So TM again stands for what?
Transcendental meditation. So if you just
Okay,
go to
cool. Sorry, yes, sir.
tm.org, yeah, you'll get all the information on it. It's kind of like the original meditation that's got all this data research on it, 600 scientific studies, NIH funded studies, a lot of the vets. If you go to davidlynchfoundation.org, a lot of vets are using TM to overcome PTSD. Even kids going through trauma, they're teaching TM in schools and stuff like that. So it's just a well-validated, systematic, natural, effortless technique to transcend, have that transcending meditation experience.
Got it. Cool. Man, it's a lot of good stuff. I hope that people out there aren't. I know it might seem like a little bit of nerding out, but I like it. I think it's fun to learn this, and obviously you've gone through it and you're making a lot from it. So, if people love what they're hearing from you, how can they find you?
So just go to newmavericks.com. That's basically a rundown of what we do. And we call ourselves New Mavericks because we are bringing new kind of game-changing things to the world. Deeper knowledge it's always been there, but we're just kind of re-enlivening it. That's all we're doing. We're kind of just messages for this knowledge of bringing consciousness into leadership. And at the end of the day, everyone who considers himself a leader has to be a maverick in some way, shape, or form. You got to be bringing something different. You got to be changing something up. And so we want to empower leaders to be that maverick, to bring that maverick that they are out of them more fully by developing more of their inner capacity so that they can not only create more, but also protect what they create. So yeah, you can find us there. Our book, The Science of Protection, as you mentioned at the top of the show, is on Amazon. And I'm on LinkedIn and most of the social media platforms. I'm actually going to go on TikTok and start building out campaigns out there. So
Nice.
if you're on TikTok, please support me there, and I'll look forward to giving you lots of value.
Awesome. Raamon, this has been an excellent conversation. I've learned a lot and I've enjoyed your story. So thank you for coming on. Any last thoughts you want to bestow on our listeners?
I think just a simple message that, whatever you're going through, whether it's great success or great challenges, is one, enjoy it because it's just part of your life. It's just part of your movie that you're going through. And two, just remain as mentally and emotionally balanced as you can because it's all going to change. And the way to do that is just have more silence. Make silence a priority. Experiencing that silence in yourself is a priority. Make silence the basis of your activity.
I love that. And so true. And it's exactly how I got where I'm at now, is because I finally started to face that person that I didn't want to look at in the mirror. I finally started to face him in the darkness of my mind. I started to face all that. And when I did, everything changed, dude. I've never been so happy and so joyful in my life. And my spiritual walk has completely shifted because of that. And it's been such a beautiful thing. But I tell you, it was scary in the beginning. It was really scary. But
Yeah, it
each
is.
day
It's
was one step closer. It was one step closer. I said, I know there's something here. People that I know, love, and respect, they're doing stuff like this. I see the shift. They have this knowing about them. They believe and they know, like they would bet their life on decisions they make. And I didn't have that capacity at that point. And now I understand how and why. And it's because I was I had the courage. I built the courage up to face my biggest fears head on, and shut my eyes and be in my own mind and slow things down. And that's when things finally started to shift for me. So I can only salute this concept and this idea, because it's everything we need is already in us. God didn't
Yep.
make us broken. We just have to now just slow it all down and start to realize that all these patterns that are running over us are not us. They are just patterns, and we have complete control over these things. It's just now a matter of slowing it down so we can actually see it.
Yeah. No, you're a great testimony of putting yourself through that experience. And yeah, it is initially it's unknown. I don't know what I'm doing here in my mind. What is this mind? What is this awareness that I have? But
Yeah.
once you settle into it, as you experience, it's actually the best charm that you ever experience in your life is getting to know yourself at that level.
100%. And the crazy part is that I've been blessed to be part of the Boy Scouts. My son's in there, and to be part of that group and these young men. There's one in particular that that we were on a trip, and he says to me, he's like, so like I would disappear for an hour or so, and I'd go meditate out in the woods. I'd love it out there, right? And I'd come back, and he'd be like, and he'd kind of joking around, like, "What are you doing out there?" And I'm like, "I'm meditating. It's cool." He's like, "Huh?" And it's like it woke up a little bit of a story loop in his head, like, what is this? So we went on a long trip this summer. We're in the middle of the Adirondacks. He's like, so that meditation thing you're talking about, think I could try it? I'm like, sure. And he's got ADHD and like he has a hard time focusing and all this kind of thing. And I'm like, here, try this one. This one's really calm. It's nice. It's 10 minutes, no big deal. And so he went out into the woods and he came back and his eyes were lit up like I've never seen him. Like it was a kid at a birthday party. Like he just walked in. This was a surprise birthday party. I said, how was that? He goes, I've never had so much peaceful time in my life, in my head, in my entire life. And he's, what is he, 18 now? I've never had that. And he's been now actively meditating for the last, well, it's probably at least 2 or 3 months now. I asked him the other night how often he does it. He goes, probably 3, 4, 5 times a week now. They're short sessions, sometimes multiple times in a day. And he's like, that's my favorite space to go to now. It's the calm space. It's the place that I can really process things and not process things and just be. He goes, and I don't get that when my eyes are open. So anyone out there listening that's struggling with just trying to keep some calmness, some peace in your soul, shut your eyes, go deeper, start to figure out that there's an entire being that's been pushed down and knocked out of existence because of all these patterns that lives down there that it can't wait to come out, that can't wait to know and believe and to guide you. It's all there. You just got to let it happen. You got to get in there and just take all the crap off, all the negative voices, all the stuff that's going on, all the patterns that you've been running. You just need to slow them down so you can see what's real. And once you see the
Yeah.
truth, dude, there's no coming back. You're not coming back from that one.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, that's a great analogy. It's like going in there and we're just like, oh, I don't need that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, I need that. That's useful. Throw that out. It's like you're doing meditation is like you're purifying your mind of all the dust in there and the cobwebs and just having a new fresh space to which to think and act from.
Well, you're purposefully creating that, right?
Yeah. Well, the mention you mentioned closing the eyes. That's the essence of it, right? And
Yeah.
why the eyes? Well, the eyes are the most active sense. So when we close off that sense, everything else, all the other senses settle down because this is the
Yeah.
most active one. It's processing so much. So as soon as we just go inward, it's just like naturally we settle down very quickly.
I love it. Well, thank you, sir. This has been a really fun conversation, and I hope the listeners out there got something from it. I know I do every episode I learn from, and that's why I love doing it. I like to share what we're talking about and learn and grow and meet some awesome people along the way. So, Raamon, thank you for everything you've offered. And guys, take a look at his stuff. I mean, he's the real deal. He spent 10 years meditating 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. Imagine how that might change your life if you were to decide to do that. I don't think the wife would probably be too happy, but it would, or the bills probably wouldn't get paid, but it's a different story. You did it at the right time of your life. So,
Yeah.
but
Meditation's for
sometimes you
everyone.
got to slow things down in order to speed them up.
Exactly, exactly. You got to pull the arrow back in order for the arrow to fire faster.
Yep.
And meditation's for everyone. If you can think a thought, you can meditate. You just need the right
Yeah.
technique and ideally a good teacher.
Hey, I never thought I would ever do it. Again, I'm like, this farmer's not going to do that. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh my goodness, why doesn't everybody do this? Because it's just the time. And there's a lot of different types of meditation. It doesn't have to be a certain type,
Yeah.
or a certain author of the meditation, or if it's guided or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's just music. Sometimes it's just silence. It really, whatever you want it to be, there's really no wrong way to do it. It's just taking time and being in your mind and seeing things for what they truly are. Because once you see that truth,
Yeah.
everything else changes. So thank you again, Raamon, and listeners out
you.
there. We'll see you next week.